everyone. My name is Varnika Gupta, and this presentation today is the part of I Am the Future series. In this series, we are speaking with various business leaders at Infosys, and today I have with me Divya Amarnath, Senior Group Leader, Leadership and Organization Development at Infosys Leadership Institute. Welcome to this presentation, Divya, and thank you so much for being a part of this series.
Thank you so much, Varnika, for having me. Absolutely a pleasure.
I'm so looking forward to our conversation. Let's begin by knowing you a bit more, Divya. How would you describe yourself? What are those two, three adjectives that you think describe you the best?
The first thing that came to my mind is grateful. So I'm going to stay with that. And yesterday I was kind of preempting this conversation with my husband and son. And my son said, all rounder. Just for that special meaning that it brings, I'm going to say all rounder. And yeah, I think confident. That's the third one that I'd add to the mix.
Okay. Are there any experiences that you can tell us about that you think have made you this all-rounder that you are today?
I think just early childhood experiences. We always said that my father was the head of the house, my mom was the heart of the house. And my younger sister and I kind of grew up wanting to be it all. I mean, the head and the heart, and kind of bringing in that balance. And they kind of nudged us and kind of, influenced us into picking up all of the stuff that we enjoy and doing more with it. So, yeah, I think it started really, really young.
Were there any specific elements or people that you were observing around you when you were growing up during your formative years that you feel would have left an impression on your personality, something that probably you imbibed unconsciously or subconsciously in your personality?
These very traits as I grew up of the entire family. My parents were hardworking individuals. My mom, extremely talented, a seamstress, a designer, and it was amazing to see how uh, she was the heart of our house because she kept her passions as her interests and hobbies and kept, her heart centered around keeping the family together. And seeing that as I grew up, made it very, very important for me to kind of pursue that. And at the same time, I loved seeing the drive that my father brought into conversations from his, what happened at work. He kept bringing those conversations back to us. And as a child, I grew up, being nurtured into seeing people giving their best to all that they do. It really made a difference.
Do you think when we are trying to give our best, like you're saying that you saw everybody around you, they were so hardworking, so passionate, and so you also were motivated to give everything you do your best. But do you think that once when we are trying to give our best to everything, it sometimes the lines get blurred, and sometimes we inch towards say a burnout because we are trying to achieve perfection in whatever we are doing? If Have you ever felt that, or were you able to strike a balance?
I believe I was lucky to be able to strike that balance, but also some great teachers throughout. Very recently, I mean, it's been a few years now, a lot of conversation around self care kind of emerged. And especially in the role that I play with the Infosys Leadership Institute, right? The work needs for us to balance the amount that we give to every part of our work day and our lives. And I think these conscious practices around, meditation and breathing allows for you to take the quick rests and the quick refreshment that you need as you kind of pursue it all.
Sure. Divya, going circling back to you being the all-rounder. So we know that you are a trained dancer. You've been a TEDx speaker. You've written a book, and you are a thriving professional. You have a wholesome personal life also. How have these experiences shaped your worldview about various things, and what have you learned from these different experiences?
As I was growing up, my dad as my professional coach, and after I got married, I enjoy the conversations that my husband and I have around our career and career decisions and choices we're making in our workspaces. So, truly, this this thought around writing a book and speaking and sharing messages came from that space of being able to or wanting to share the gifts that I've been given in such close relationships and such opportunities um, through life to be coached and to be mentored. And I thought it was important to share some of that. And so the book really came from there. And dancing. I've had the pleasure of kind of combining a childhood hobby of Bharatanatyam, Indian classical dance, um, and combining it with the 20 years of career that I've had in the space of people and leadership development, and then taking it out to the world through messages, and even in my TED talk, I do that. So I think the essence that stays with me is that piece about sharing the gifts of knowledge that I've been blessed with.
Sure. How did this come about? How did you decide to merge the two, dance and speaking? Who came up with this idea?
Well, so after about 27 years of not having danced and performed on a stage, uh, I had this urge that I wanted to dance. And I, called up my dad and said, Papa, I feel like dancing Bharatanatyam again. And he says, well, you go hone your skills and I'll find you a stage. And he found me a stage in our hometown in Kerala, at a temple function. And I went back to, training and learning dance from a dance teacher. I performed and it was an amazing high. And as I was kind of reflecting on that high, came an opportunity from CETAR India, a group that does a lot of work in the space of interculture. And they had a conference, a formal conference, mind you, that had paper presentations. And I was looking at interpersonal success as individual leaders. And there was a little byline that said, and you can make creative presentations. I think that was the moment that I said, now I know what a creative presentation means. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity, Varnika, because that was the first time in that performance that I combined dance into that message around listening to our inner voices and messages when being minority groups across the world. I remember at the end of that performance, I kind of bent down with my namaste, and when I looked up, I was in the midst of a standing ovation. A simple idea of just combining two areas that I truly love, and what emerged for me was a life changing experience.
This like you were saying that how you told your father and he provided the stage for you and encouraged you to to you take it up again. These allies have been very, like, your father has been your true ally, your true cheerleader in your journey, it seems. Why do you think having allies is so important, and how can one, not everyone, I'm assuming, is as lucky as say you are, where your father was so encouraging. And so how can they look for allies, look for cheerleaders, if they don't have, if the parents are not supportive enough or the partners aren't supportive enough?
My family as a whole, they're great allies. Um, I think if I have to shift this slightly to as we're growing in our careers, a bunch of allies that I think are super important are your team and your friends at work. I've been really lucky that way to have a good bunch of you know friends who are even today my cheerleaders. Um, Another important element that we sometimes miss is that our managers can be our biggest allies, and it's a two-way street to enlist our the support of our managers, and sometimes it could just start with us making that request of sharing our aspiration and um, requesting our managers to be our allies. And again, an area that I've been so so I'm so grateful for all the great managers that I've had. I'd say very important for us to continue as we grow to cherish the peers that we work with. Um, at the Leadership Institute, we're a really small team, but I think what makes all the difference is that whether it's a session that you're facilitating or something that's happening in your personal life, um, you receive messages and cheers, and you can sometimes hear those voices ring. So, Varnika, the answer to your question is really that we all have the opportunity to create allies. Um, it is as we grow into our roles and into our careers. Sometimes I've heard people say that leadership can be lonely. Uh, it doesn't have to be. If through our careers we're nurturing this ecosystem of allies and kind of celebrating our allies through our journey, because really they're here to stay if you can make that happen. So choose your allies well, is what I would say.
So they are talking about choices. What have been some of those, top choices, and these can be personal or professional, that you feel have steered your life in that right direction, and in the direction that it has been most beneficial for you, or has placed you in a position where you can really give back, because that is one of the core values of you as a human also.
I think one choice I made early on is the choice of investing in my learning through life. Um, I know in an organization like ours, and I'm glad I chose to work here, um, we have a very strong learning culture. People value investing in their own development. And so that I feel is a choice that I made through my career, whether it was wanting to study in a certain B school, and whether it was about working in a particular organization. Um, a lot of real impact can be made if you're speaking to people who have a lot of influence. Because if that individual is able to raise their own aspirations and that of the people that they're working with, then the impact is so much more. And the one thing I think that kept me anchored through all these life choices has been the choice to invest in my own learning.
You, like I said, you are an expert in all, in all things leadership and human connections, and you've had such vast experiences. You do so many different things. How all these experiences and your experiences from your childhood, your mother, your father, how have all these helped you in developing an understanding of diversity and inclusion, and how has it evolved over the years?
I think growing up, I grew up actually in seven different cities, and a large part of my growing up was in Saudi Arabia. Um, our parents, we noticed, always paid attention to equity, being respectful. Uh, and I got married into a family where, being respectful just came naturally. So it's been life experiences that kind of remind us that equity is important. Um, the other day, my 12-year-old and I were having like a, whatever you call it, like a roll in the bed and some physical activity. And suddenly I went, ouch. And he looked at me in surprise because honestly, he thought that I would have the strength to take that blow that he'd given me. And I looked at him and I said, hey, you're growing older, which means you're growing stronger. And he looked at me and thought, you're already older, so you should be stronger. And I had to have this conversation with him about how, we're all built differently. And so as he grows older, he would be getting stronger. But for me, as a woman, to grow stronger, it's possible for me to get as strong as he does. But if that's the choice that I make to get, do all the physical exercise, that I develop muscle as much as he did, while he would do it much more easily, led from one thing to another to this conversation about how making sure that we live in an equitable world is a choice that each of us make. I've been lucky to work with some amazing colleagues that truly respect individuals for who they are, irrespective of gender. And I'm talking about leaders also who are, irrespective of gender. So it's growing years that we form these ideas about what's an equitable world and how can we be more inclusive. And it's these little life experiences, little questions that get thrown at you that make you pause and reflect on why it matters and then be able to be that person as you live life and lead through your careers.
Sure. Divya, the all-rounder that you are, so you've had multiple achievements, but what have been some of those learning experiences, some of those challenges that you faced in the journey along the way, and how did you mitigate those challenges?
When I'm thinking of what challenges I faced, it's really the challenges that we face through careers, right? Are you making the right choices? Are you making the right decisions? Are you impacting people? Um, are you realizing how much you impact people with every choice and decision that you make? So it's really it's really to be able to see life as uh, with the highs, with the lows, they come that way, and know that in the end it will all balance out. Learnings, I think the key learnings I've had from these various experiences, the lows through the career, um, have been lean in on your allies. So I know we discussed this earlier, but it's a big one. Being able to walk up to your manager and have the conversation uh, on days when you were angry about something that happened the previous day, and being able to tell your manager that I was really angry yesterday, and he says, I know, right? To be able to have those kind of people in your journey is what helps you overcome those blips, and yeah, whoever that ally is. For me, a big bunch of those allies sit in my friends at work, friends outside of work, and my family. So that's my learning. Nurture them.
What if if aspiring professional is watching this interview right now, what can they learn from your journey?
Continue to invest in your talents, the ones that you really enjoyed doing as a child. Continue to invest in them because you have no clue where life will take you as you go further. In my case, it was one hobby of dance that I combined with work, and it presented me a TEDx stage. So that's the first. Continue to invest in your talents. The second one for me, the big one, would be we all have gifts, whether it's a gift of being able to lead people effectively or the gift of being able to speak in a manner that's inspiring, or the gift to be able to get something done and done in a way that people look up and take notice. Whatever is the gift that you have, share your gifts. This could be through mentoring somebody who doesn't have the gift, offering, a performance coaching or coaching to somebody who doesn't have the opportunity. But recognize your gifts and share your gifts. And yeah, the last one would be choose your allies well and make sure you celebrate your allies.
And for my final question, Divya, what kind of impact are you hoping to create with your work, and what do you want your legacy to be?
The legacy that I would like to leave is having raised the aspiration of the people that I've worked with, that they remember me as somebody who really pushed them beyond what they thought they were capable of, help them see their own true potential, and yet did so kindly. Um, the more people that I'm able to have moved to be a better version of themselves, that would be my legacy that I would cherish.
That's so beautiful, and like you said, we should always be grateful, and we should be ready to give back to the society whenever we think that we are ready to do so. Thank you so much, Divya, for these wonderful insights. I'm sure anyone who's listening to them will have so much to learn from. Thank you for your time, and for everyone who tuned in, please stay tuned. We have more such interviews in this series lined up for you. So keep watching your story. Thank you.